The United States and Iran were locked in a tense standoff, hovering just minutes away from a devastating military strike. Both sides were boxed into a corner, and neither could back down without appearing incredibly weak to their citizens back home. Then the immediate threat of war suddenly evaporated. President Trump admitted to Agence France-Presse that a ceasefire had been reached, and he explicitly credited Chinese persuasion for bringing both sides back from the edge. But if you check the diplomatic logs from that highly volatile week, you'll find a massive contradiction. Chinese leadership brokered this de-escalation without President Xi Jinping making a single phone call to facilitate it. To understand how a nation successfully negotiates a major global peace deal while staying completely off the phone, we have to look through the analytical framework of veteran political commentator Ho Pin from the program Today's Dots. Ho Pin calls this strategy Jinggong, or silent power. This calculated physical absence functions as a deliberate tool of influence, allowing a player to shape global events while remaining entirely off the radar. We routinely miss these maneuvers because Western observers are trained to look for shouting at the podium. While the world scans the horizon for loud declarations of authority, we completely overlook the invisible hand of silent power quietly resolving the crisis. Ho Pin argues that Western politicians and media analysts are chronically confused by Beijing because they are trying to read a completely new language using an outdated rulebook. Many of today's decision-makers are suffering from an 80s hangover. They map the globe using George Orwell's 1984 as a permanent blueprint, expecting every geopolitical conflict to split neatly into two permanent warring ideological camps. That expectation comes directly from history. When the British Empire, the United States, or the Soviet Union rose to global prominence, their standard operating procedure always included exporting their political systems, spreading their ideology, and aggressively forcing regime changes. Analysts look at China's rising influence and wait for them to start banging their shoes on the table and exporting revolution, just like the Soviets did during the height of the Cold War. But Iran isn't Cuba, and modern Beijing isn't Moscow. Attempting to predict the trajectory of a 21st century economic power by applying 20th century Soviet aggression is a guaranteed way to get the forecast wrong. Ho Pin contrasts two structures. Western diplomacy is the lighthouse, sitting high up, radiating ideology, demanding everyone follow its direction. China is the road. It sits flat beneath your feet, providing a solid foundation, leaving the choice of how to walk entirely up to you. We saw this exact dynamic play out between Washington and Tehran. The two heavily armed nations were completely locked up, both desperately needing a way to retreat safely without signaling defeat. Beijing applied Jinggong. They quietly laid down the diplomatic paving stones, so both nations had a route to walk back from the ledge. Once the path was built, Chinese diplomats turned around and walked away, without holding a victory press conference. When two countries are stuck in a dangerous stalemate, giving them a structural exit ramp solves the immediate problem, far better than broadcasting a lecture on global morality. If you scan the headlines of major Western newspapers from that week, you probably won't find Beijing mentioned at all. But if you read the actual text of the ceasefire agreement, Chinese influence is written into its very foundation. Ho Pin notes that to observers accustomed to the lighthouse model, giving up the spotlight looks like losing the game. Yet this deliberate absence creates a profound presence. Operating quietly in the background is a highly effective form of statecraft. We live in a deeply fractured environment, dominated by constant digital hostility and zero-sum political posturing. Nations operate in a frenzied feedback loop, where internet rage regularly dictates foreign policy. In Ho Pin's view, by actively refusing to participate in that noise, China's quiet maneuvering provided the one thing the international community desperately needed: a stabilizing force, keeping things normal. The next time geopolitical tensions reach a boiling point and suddenly cool off, don't just watch the officials celebrating at the microphones. Look down at the floor to see who quietly built the road out of the mess.